and welcome to the Kendal Mountain YouTube channel. Today I'm in About Time Espresso Bar. For those of you who joined us at the festival in 2022, you may recognise it as a venue for our queer space across the festival, and also it's where we hosted our first ever Queer Connections. We welcomed filmmakers, speakers, authors, people from the local community and those travelling to visit us. And we welcomed over 70 people here in About Time Espresso Bar on the Friday evening. We just wanted to let you know that this video contains sensitive issues, which those from the community may find triggering or upsetting. Nikki speaks with such beauty, honesty, and is just phenomenal in this clip, so we couldn't think of anyone better to kick off our Pride Month YouTube Throwback Thursdays. We have our next speaker, which I'm going to stay calm about. So when I was planning this session, I had a dream list. Let's be honest, that was about 100 names long, so it was really hard for me to funnel this down. But at the top of that list for quite some time was this next woman. She is she's an everything. She is a climber, but within the climbing realm, she boulders, sport climbs, trad climbs, winter climbs, ice climbs. I'm sure she snowboards as well. She's a photographer. The shots she's taken over the years are just so well known. So it is my great honour to welcome to the Women in Adventure stage tonight, virtually, Nikki Smith.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Hi Nikki.
Just want to start out. Hey, just want to start out and say thanks to the Kendal Mountain Festival and crew for putting this together. This is pretty amazing to see all these great speakers and presentations and films. Yeah, and thanks to everyone who's taken the time to support the outdoors and this amazing fest and to listen to what we have to say today. Yeah, I'll just get right into it. So I started climbing when I was 16, and it was 1992, and at the time, I was completely lost. My father had died a few years earlier, my mother had just remarried, and I was struggling to figure out many of the things that most teenagers struggle with. Who they are, who they want to be. But for me, there was always a little bit more. I struggled knowing that I wasn't the person everyone around me told me I was, and everyone wanted me to be. But when I first touched the rock, I finally found some place where I felt I belonged. And I'm guessing that many of you out there tonight have felt the same. For a time, I felt like I belonged, and I climbed constantly. I made a career in climbing. I guided, I wrote 5 guidebooks. I've done more than 150 first ascents. I wrote and photographed for climbing magazines, worked for climbing companies, and I got to travel all over the world to climb. But over time, I had to face the fact that I didn't really belong. Every accomplishment felt empty. The person everyone thought I was didn't really exist. And I always thought, if they knew who I really was, they wouldn't accept me. They only like and accept a character that I had to portray. For years I looked for others like me in climbing, but always came up short. I listened to climbing partners and outdoor industry coworkers regularly making homophobic and transphobic jokes or derogatory comments. I saw the horrific route and boulder names, and I saw the negative messaging that our society gives about trans people. And because of this, my world got smaller, and I began to withdraw from climbing, from friends, from family, from everything. By the spring of 2017, I was in one of the darkest places of my life. When I was a kid, I remember laying a blanket out on the floor, and we'd grab the edges and just roll inward until we were wrapped all the way up. And I realized later on that my life felt like I started rolling into the blanket when I was a child, and I never stopped. I just kept rolling over and over and over until the light was gone and I could hardly breathe anymore. At this point, I'd been rolling for so long that I no longer knew which way to go to reverse it. And so for most of 2017, I was highly suicidal. But I finally admitted to myself who I was and what I needed to do to survive, and I fought for that. And slowly, I came to accept the woman I am. It wasn't an easy path, and there were a lot of stumbles and uncertainty. My wife and I had begun to consider moving and starting over because we didn't believe we would be accepted. And unfortunately, that was and still is the reality for so many. But in the fall of 2017, I opened a copy of Climbing magazine, and I finally saw someone else like me. In their women's issue was an article on the climber Jamie Logan. Jamie had put up first ascents of rock and ice routes all over North America and was at the forefront of the push for free climbing in the US in the 1970s. I was late for a meeting, but I stopped in my tracks. I sat down and I read the article right then and there. For the first time in climbing, I had hope. There was another trans person. Within an hour, I had called the doctor to get an appointment for hormone therapy. I'd been on the fence for over 2 months about going in, but seeing someone else like me changed everything. We hear a lot of debate right now about why someone's gender, sexuality, or race matters in climbing or the outdoors. Why there's a need for women-specific events or affinity groups for people of color or queer folks. Why are we even having this group today? Why should outdoor companies and organizations put some of their focus and resources into welcoming those who haven't felt at home in our sports? Because after all, nature accepts everyone, doesn't it? Unfortunately, the reality is nature is surrounded by and still filled with other people. My life is very different in climbing in the world now. 3 years ago, I could walk safely around town. I could travel to any climbing area or gym and not have to give a second thought. No one was going to mess with me or harass me. Now, I'm always afraid. In the US this year already, 37 trans people have been murdered, and over 350 worldwide. The rates of violence and discrimination against trans people, especially trans women and trans feminine folks of color, have risen drastically all over the world, including the UK and Europe. I've been harassed, threatened, and groped. I've had objects thrown at me, and this is in towns, on hiking trails, or at crags. Now I have to constantly worry whether I'm going to be attacked for using a bathroom in a gas station on the way to the crag or trailhead. Or will some of the people staring and laughing at me in the restaurant or bar after climbing wait for me and try to hurt me when I leave? Can I hold my wife's hand or kiss her at a busy crag or campground? Can I safely use a bathroom or changing room in a climbing gym without being harassed or arrested for indecent exposure? If I get in a car wreck or have a climbing accident, will I be refused medical care on religious grounds? My access to climbing in the outdoors is now limited. My identity as a woman who happens to be transgender limits my access to public spaces in many places due to public bathroom laws. It limits my ability to safely travel to many countries. It limits my ability to employment. The state or city I live in could be a determining factor on whether or not I can now access climbing safely. How many of you have had to do a Google search on an area, region, or country just to see whether you can safely travel there because of your own identity? For many of us, that's something we have to do constantly. These are all real worries that I and so many others have to continually think about now just to leave our houses. My identity, like that of many others in underrepresented groups in climbing, follows me. I don't have to talk about it. I don't have to bring it up. It's always there, and it puts me at risk. In recent years, many affinity groups like Black Girls Hike and so many others have formed to advocate for and support members of underrepresented communities, and they're thriving. Entire climbing festivals such as Flash Foxy's Women's Climbing Fest, the Women's Trad Festival in the UK, Colour of the Crag, and many more have formed, and most of them sell out tickets in the same day. These events and groups are creating spaces for people to try climbing or outdoor activities for the first time. They are allowing those who struggle with their place in the outdoors to be around others like them, to see themselves. But these spaces alone are not enough. We need the broader outdoor community to embrace everyone, not just in words or photos, or by putting a black or brown or trans person in their ads or social media feeds occasionally, but to truly welcome everyone into our sports. Our public outdoor spaces are under more threat now than ever before. Overcrowding, underfunding, mismanagement, and misuse of these spaces continues to threaten and eliminate access. Global warming is threatening our entire civilization. Entire ecosystems are threatened. Our glaciers are receding, ice climbs are disappearing, and ski seasons are becoming shorter and less consistent. Here in the western US, wildfires are devastating the landscape. The smoke is blanketing cities hundreds of miles away and causing respiratory issues for people who never even step into the mountains. We are all connected to these outdoor spaces in one way or another, and we need the voices and actions of everyone to fight these changes. To do that, we must start including and welcoming everyone. We must speak to them and not at them. We need to embrace those who are afraid to join us. And we must reflect the diversity that already exists in the outdoors. How can we expect people who are always scared and feel unwelcome to go to a workshop about trail or crag etiquette, or to go to a fell cleanup, to attend and support a festival like this one, or even become a member of an environmental advocacy group when other outdoor people harass them just for being who they are? Think about how these outdoor spaces and activities have impacted your life, what they mean to you, and what they give back to you. These spaces and experiences belong to all of us. There's a genuine fear for many people to access the outdoors. We risk harassment and bodily harm in doing so. Some of us have been privileged enough to disregard that fear and go to these places anyway. We go because we belong. We go because we love the outdoors and climbing. We go because not doing so means we lose a part of ourselves. There's an entire group of people in the outdoors who have yet to be fully embraced or welcomed. They fight daily to be who they are. They fight for what they believe in. So why wouldn't we embrace and welcome someone so willing to fight? What better ally could we have fighting next to us to protect the lands, outdoor places, and sports we love?
Thank you, Nikki. That was so powerful, and I've been really excited to have you on here because there's so many parallels between our experiences. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing for your community to overcome the barriers that you've experienced?
I decided when I transitioned, I had two choices. Either I was going to try to hide, which, because of my background in climbing, meant probably leaving climbing, or I was going to be very loud. And I've tried to be as loud as I can. I've done a lot of speaking, and now I get to be the person that I needed when I saw that article about Jamie Logan. I get messages constantly from people all over the world now that have heard my story and reach out thinking that they were completely alone, that there wasn't anyone else like them, and just seeing someone else has changed their lives in the way that finding someone else like me did for me. And that's been an amazing gift and something I don't take for granted at all. It's indescribable to be in that place now.
Oh, Nikki, I just want to say your talk was so powerful, and it's so good to see you, all the stuff you said, I don't devalue that at all, but to see you thriving lately in everything you do in your life, and the fact you've been climbing lots this year is really good to see. So if anyone watching wants to be an ally, wants to get more involved, what are ways to empower others that are sustainable, helpful and useful?
Well, there's a lot of different organizations, such as Brown Girls Hike, that are all over the world now. Finding these and supporting them. A lot of organizations started out trying to create their own thing and reinvent the wheel when the leaders from these different communities are there. They already know what their communities need. They're already accessing that community. You don't have to try to do your own version of that. Support these groups that already exist. Work in their leadership into your planning for events. Companies can reach out to them to find new talented athletes, employees. These are amazing resources. Use them and support them.
Yeah, and what would you say have been some of your biggest achievements in kind of like breaking down the barriers for people? Like some of the things that you've managed to kind of like implement, or any of the like groups that you've created?
A couple of the things I'm really proud of right now are empowering people from underrepresented communities to tell their own stories. My story is usually told in magazines or videos or on podcasts by cis straight people who don't understand my experience. And I spend a lot of time explaining things that someone from my own community would know easily how to tell my story better. And I've been able to work with quite a few different companies to put on a photographer camp where I was able to teach people and give a full ride scholarship to people from all over the United States to come out and learn how to be better climbing photographers, how to pitch their story to magazines and companies, and to be able to tell their own story of their own community in the way that they know is best. Recently, I was able to get a training course set up for queer LGBTQIA plus climbing guides. There aren't that many in guiding that are out right now. It just hasn't been something where people have felt safe enough. And I've been able to get industry and organizational support to get scholarships for people for that. And we need to do more than just show photos of diversity. We need to empower people in those communities to lead and to tell their story.
Couldn't agree more. I like particularly what you said about making sure that it's you telling your story, or someone that represents you, so that it's not necessarily taken out of context. Mm-hmm. So it's told in the right way.
It makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Oh, that is... Nikki, I could, as you know, happily talk to you for hours. I know it should happen. You tell your story so well. I saw you tearing up there, and I hope you're okay. You're such a brilliant storyteller and photographer and climber, and I hope a lot of people watching at home who have just learnt a lot and will go forward, take your advice, go online, implement steps within their company. Big love to you and your family over in America, and thank you so much for joining us, albeit digitally, tonight, and hopefully one day you can come over, we can go for a climb up in the lakes and go for a swim with Gilly down at the lake.
Definitely, I would love that. And thank you for having me on today.
It's okay, Nikki, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
you too. Bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed listening to Nikki's brilliant interview there. If you've been affected by any of the issues raised, please see the relevant charities and resources below. Please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you'd like to watch the entirety of the Berghaus Women in Adventure session from 2020, please check it out on the Kendal Mountain Player, which is now at the amazing price of $9.99. Links and details below in the description.